Hello, my fellow strawmen, and welcome back to the Fields of Hay. Today I have an exciting announcement that for the first time ever, someone made a response video to me. It wasn't someone with millions of viewers, nor was it a theist, who I really want to talk to, but hey, baby steps. This all happened about 2 months ago, and it's entirely on me for being slow to turn around and make my reply video to it. It all started with a handful of comments left on the video I posted about the presuppositional atheist known as breakfast tacos. Deconverted man here tells me to stop borrowing from his worldview, questions whether I know what atheism is, and says that it's a bad analysis. I'm left wondering how, if only he had been more specific. I wanted to ask him, but these comments were such low effort that I responded in kind, only asking how I was borrowing from Taco's worldview and why it's problematic even if I did. To which he giggled. Seriously, he roleplayed giggling in the comments. And with the atheism comment, I did have to go look it up. It boils down to a very simple idea of God being so ill defined that asking whether God exists is nonsense. So I tell him I'm familiar with the concept, and I get a somewhat cryptic answer back. Not the part about him saying he's an atheist, that's pretty mundane. No, the part about analyzing my analysis life. No idea what that meant. But if this were the whole story, I wouldn't be making this video if all that happened was some random guy who posted meaningless stuff in a YouTube comment. But the next day, I woke up to a notification saying that DM here made a 90-minute response video to me, a live analysis, if you will, and suddenly I understood his last comment. So I go and watch the video, and first of all, I no longer think this is just some lazy guy leaving useless comments. He clearly left them quickly while talking to his audience, and the main content of his points is in the video. Secondly, he said in his video, somewhat jokingly to his friend, that there's no way I have a conversation with him. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking that I want nothing more than to find someone who wants to have these kinds of public discussions with me about theism. So I leave a comment on his video and we start chatting over email and we decide on a time I can join his live stream and we can talk through his critiques. My intention with this video was to record the conversation and post it in full, along with a link to DM's original critique. That way you'd have the full conversation and know you're not missing any of the context. Unfortunately, about 15 minutes into that conversation, the power to my apartment cut out and my internet went down. By the time I got it back up and emailed him asking if he wanted to continue, he said that everything he wanted to say had been said. I still had several points I wanted to acknowledge, but I guess he was happy with the one point he really made. So instead, I'll post the portion of the live stream that we made it through, and then I'll do my typical style breaking down DM's response video and cover all the points I didn't get to in my conversation with him. If you want to watch the live stream on his page or his original live response, links are in the description.
Deconverted man here. I've got the straw man. Now, the straw man. Welcome.
Hello, DM. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Now, to recap what brought us here today. So, straw man I found while I was looking for content to do on, are atheists wrong? And
Mm-hmm.
I found a video from him. Oh, no. And he was talking smack about the breakfast taco, who's a presuppositionalist atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I found it to be quite amusing because you were taking him seriously, and his whole stick is to do what he's doing, which is just silliness. And
Mm-hmm.
but you know I analyzed it, and Blaster Master then joined me, and he had some things to say as well. So after learning of your error about Breakfast Taco's actual position,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you'll have something to say about that.
Yeah, so I think because I had only done the bare minimum research, I had opened up his channel. It said at the top he was a pre-sup atheist. I suppose that was part of the satire, and I didn't quite catch that. So it does certainly change my criticism. I can't say that it gets rid of it entirely. Um, the big thing I think being the mislead, I guess, of starting the pre-sup. So I think pre-sup is a wonderful way, or the argument from absurdity is a wonderful way to deal with people who are pre-sups, but it doesn't work so well if he's not the one responding to an actual pre-sup, if he's the one being the one,
Now,
if
how
he's
do
the
you
one
know
starting
that?
it off, I suppose. What do you
How
mean?
do you
Wait, say it
how
again.
do you know that it doesn't work so well?
Well, because if you're the one starting the pre-sup, then the person you're talking to is going to make the argument from absurdity to you. Think like they're going to take you seriously, and they're going to be the ones. Like
How do
they're
you
going to make the exact same point to you that you're trying to make to them, and you're just going to get into a circular
do
just.
you have do you have data to show that that's the case?
What I my video, yeah, because I took him seriously, and then I don't know if you caught it, but I actually made the argument from absurdity at him. That moment where, I said that he's wrong and that's an undeniable fact. Right? I probably
Okay.
could have spent more time on
So
it,
your
but
so your evidence for your statement is a appeal to a minority of one.
no, it's evidence in the fact that that is a thing that happened, right? I took him
Okay,
seriously.
do you have example of other people besides yourself doing that?
I didn't come prepared here, no. But do
Okay.
you want to deal with the piece of evidence that I am presenting?
Which is?
Which is that because I thought he was serious, I went in trying to explain to him why Precept was wrong. And
But
it's
you
kind of
didn't
a
do
waste of
that.
time. Please explain. Why did I not do that when I made
Well,
if I did the exact same thing as him,
ad
why does it count?
hominems and poisoning of the well against him, and you didn't actually explain what the logical problems of presuppositionalism are.
So I will certainly admit that I insulted him, and I did that because he was Precept. I think that is one of the right
Does that
things
make
to
it
do.
okay to insult people?
As long as you do the other explanations as well, yeah. And let's address the fact that I did make an argument from absurdity to him, did I not?
No, I don't really think so. I think that you
So
insulted him and committed numerous ad hominems, and you weren't making it clear that it was an argument of absurdity, nor were you making it clear why such a tactic would be beneficial if indeed you were complaining about that he's using that tactic. That seems rather hypocritical. Also, I do note you have not yet apologized to Breakfast Tacos, and here's your chance to do that.
well, I certainly apologize for not recognizing what his position was. I think given that I thought that he was serious, like that was the right response to have.
So
and I
it's
could have
okay
also
to
spent,
insult people if you think they're serious about presuppositionalism?
So let me finish. I could have also spent some more time making the argument from absurdity clear, but I think I made actually a similar argument to what you made in that respect, because when you criticized me for not explaining the actual underlying logic, and I didn't, I only did the argument from absurdity, you said that the problem with presupposition is that it's circular and that it doesn't need any further explanation. But then what's wrong with a circular argument? You didn't actually explain what that is. I think it's a very easy mistake to make, to leave out this logical argument. And I'm happy to give you
it's
the
okay.
actual...
It's okay when you do it, but it's not okay when others do it.
No, it's not okay when anybody does. I think we need to all
right.
recognize the
So
mistake,
do you
'cause we
think
both
that
did it.
do you think that you owe Breakfast Taco a legitimate formal apology on your channel?
Like, I'm not going to make a separate like apology video. I'm just going
Why
to put it on
not?
this stream. Well, because I'll say what I have to say on this this live stream right now.
But
So,
why not make your own video and sincerely apologize to him for your errors, and also show your audience on your own channel that you're willing and able to be corrected on your mistakes? This is a social faux pas. Don't you think that you owe it to him and your audience to demonstrate that you are mature enough to admit that you made a mistake?
yeah, and I've admitted that I misunderstood what he intended.
That doesn't sound like an apology, though.
But is he okay? So can I just understand what his intentions are? Because
does it matter?
You insulted him, the person. Troll and part legitimate.
You're insulting a person. Is it okay to insult people?
Not okay. So I think that in terms of like the social aspect, like people are going to insult people, but like it's not something that
is it
like,
okay to insult people?
Regularly. Can we please get back to like the part where we actually
is it
explain
okay
the logical
to insult
problem?
people?
It's not okay to insult people.
Then why did you do it?
Because it's hard not to do. It's a human error.
Okay.
To be clear, it's ad hominem if you insult and then make the argument that the insult is the reason why they're wrong. I insulted him and then gave.
But you didn't. But you really didn't.
But I did give an argument from absurdity. I did.
But you didn't make that very clear, did you?
Yeah, and I couldn't. And that I will apologize for not making it as clear as I could.
You're saying that it's wrong to do that, yet you're being a hypocrite by doing that. Oh, so it's a tu que. So you did it as well then.
So can we actually get to the structure of like the problem with the presupposition? Because there was a logical problem.
No, I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in getting you.
And when I've answered that I am willing to apologize for the things that I've apologized for, why do you keep pushing for me to have a further apology?
Well, I don't think that it's a very good one.
Well, I'll give the apology that he deserves. What apology are you fishing for here exactly? What mistakes?
Well, I think that a legitimate one that's actually human and not one where, I was caught with my hand in the cookie jar. I guess I'll kind of say I'm sorry, but I'm really not.
But do you not think it's problematic for him to mislead, for him to start with the presup even when the theist he's addressing isn't a presup?
No, I think that's a legitimate strategy.
You don't think that so Joseph in the video that I responded to, Joseph did not seem like a presup to me. Why did the presup use this argument?
Why do you assume that he was assuming anything? Are you able to read minds?
No, but if you're gonna use the argument from absurdity, you ought to do it back to a person using it.
Oh,
Why
okay.
would
So you know the tactics better than he does?
I'm just giving my advice, man. I'm
Oh,
just giving
okay.
my
So it's
opinion.
just advice. It's not actually based on any data or evidence. So it's okay to give advice without any actual data, facts, or information to back it up, I guess.
So, I mean, it depends on what his goals are. Is his goal
What does it
to,
matter what his goal is? You
well,
still
what your
insulted
goal
a
is going to
person.
determine what
If he
actions
was
best meet that
Christian,
goal.
if he was Christian and you insulted him, it'd still be a problem. You don't need to do that. Do you think it's a good tactic to insult people to get to them to agree with your conclusion? If not, then why do it?
So I think there are three things to do when you deal with a precept. One is to give the logical problem with it.
I
One is to do
noticed
the
you didn't
argument from
answer the
absurdity.
question.
And the third one is to insult them mercilessly. Yeah,
Why
mock them, tell
insult them,
people,
though? You think
because
that's
you're
a
telling the
legitimate
rest of your
tactic?
people in your social group not to engage, that not to
But
take
you're
that
but
person
you're saying
seriously.
that how can you be such
If
a
you insulted
hypocrite?
me right now, I'd be okay with it because
Well,
I need.
I don't need to insult you. I just need to show that you're acting in an irrational, hypocritical way. Now, being a
But
hypocrite is not a
if you
logical
insult me and
fallacy,
you, if you insult me and you also give a rational discussion of what I've done
but it's
wrong,
not needed, is it?
then it's not needed, but
Then don't
it
do it.
happens. Here, what I will say is that I do find presuppositionalism stupid, and if somebody is being a serious presuppositionalist, I do think that they are stupid, and I will mock them on that. But given that breakfast tacos is not an actual serious presupposition, I will take back the insults. Like those were all attached to me thinking he was serious. So I apologize for giving the insults to him. But I do think those are appropriate insults to give to somebody who is a presuppositionalist if they are not listening to the other two things, right? The argument from absurdity or the logical explanation.
What utilitarian usefulness does the insults have?
I suppose within the social circle, it's part of the greater rhetoric, I guess. I don't know.
You don't know.
You build a social group and you mock those outside the social group to some small degree. And it's not a great thing. Like you do want to break down boundaries as much as possible, but it's a human error. It's impossible not to do.
Well, I don't think it's
not
impossible not to do. I think it's very possible to avoid that error. You can simply not do it. And if you're editing a video, you can simply edit it out.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I can take that credit. Maybe I spent too much time on the insults. I'll take that criticism. I still think there is a time and a place to insult. I don't think that we need to be.
When is that time and place?
When somebody is ignoring the obvious, let's say, if somebody really.
How do you know that it's obvious, though?
So here, now would actually be a good time for me to give the logical explanation because we've been dancing around that this whole time. So do you mind if I give that?
You can attempt to give a logical explanation. I'll analyze it for fallacies.
Yeah, of course. So you got the logical law of non-contradiction, right? A thing cannot be both A and not A at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is presupposition going to be any better of a method for reaching A or for reaching not A? I see it's going to be equivalent. So if you have a method that can equally well get to two contradictory conclusions, then it's not a good method.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's the logical argument because presupposition can get you to two logically contradictory conclusions. Therefore,
that would have been a good video.
Yeah, and I do wish that I had included that in hindsight. Yeah, I should have spent more time explaining that. But I think it's one of those things where it is so obvious to some people because you made the same mistake. You didn't give that explanation. You just said that it was circular. And I'm not trying to call you out or anything on it. I made the same mistake too. But
mine was live.
It's one of those things that really is so obvious to a lot of people that we don't fully explain it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a live stream, so I'm not editing my video. I'm not taking my time and energy to do it. And people kind of know that when I'm live streaming, I'm riffing off the top of my head, and I'm bound to miss something. I let and want my audience to correct me, and when and if they do, I make videos saying, yes, I was wrong, and here's how I was wrong, and withdraw. In fact, in a recent live stream that I did, I analyzed somebody's argument, and he said that I was strawmanning him. And when it seemed that I said I fully withdraw my analysis and offer my apology. Now, I don't know if accepted that or not, but I certainly did that, and I left the video up to show that I am willing to be wrong and in error. But rather than making your own video, you said, an email, and you said here that you just want to do this. You don't feel compelled to make your own video and perhaps pursue Breakfast Taco and apologize to him in email and, try to fit. And whether he accepts it or not, well, who knows? But at least you've made the effort. So have you made that effort?
Now, sadly, this is where my internet cut out. But if I'd been able to keep going, I would have said that no, I've not reached out to him. But neither has he reached out to me. I don't even know if Tacos has listened to or cared about anything I've said, even though DM apparently messaged him about it. Watching the clip back, I think two things are clear to me. Number one, I still have a long way to go with public speaking. I can hear the nerves every time I talk, and that was with an audience of like 5 people. Two, the whole conversation was barely a discussion of the presupposition itself, and instead DM just fished for an apology from me and talked about the morality of insulting others. And I stand by what I said. In general, you should try not to insult people, but if you've explained to someone why presupposition doesn't work and they still want to use it, it's a pretty natural way to vent one's frustration. I wasn't prepared to talk about this point, so during my conversation with DM, the answer I thought of off the cuff was about one's social circle and reinforcing to those you agree with the rejection of your opponent's position. I don't think this is as good of a point as just calling it a human error, since I don't mean to imply that it's good to play into the us versus them mentality. Certainly, if your interlocutor is trying to portray an honest position, you shouldn't insult them. But if the divide is already there and the conversation's hit a wall, it's pretty natural to do. That's why I think presupposition is worthy of being ridiculed, because if you've explained the logical issues with it, and you've played out the argument from absurdity, and they still don't get it, then it's clear that they don't care about the truth and will burn bridges with anyone who doesn't fall in line with their beliefs. Insult those people all you want. So to address the other critiques we never got to in our conversation, and to provide some context to some of the points we were talking about, let's now dive into the original live response DM made to my video.
So this guy, Mistakes Atheists Make, Episode 1, Breakfast Tacos. So you want to analyze something, for logical fallacies or whatever. Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's fantastic. I know Breakfast Tacos to some extent, not well. He is doing a very specific thing. Whether you agree with what he's doing or not, it's a side note. What he is doing is being a presuppositional atheist. He is not serious on that position, but it is one he espouses. There is a reason for this. There is a method to this madness.
We can talk about the justification for being a Poe later, but right now I want to point out that this is the reason why DM isn't getting a clear apology out of me. I went into the analysis from Friar Joseph's point of view, and there was no indication that Taco wasn't serious about what he was saying. I even watched a handful of his other videos, and he did the same script, telling the theist that he was now an atheist after tripping the guy up with some paradoxical wordplay, even while the theist was still trying to mull the point over in his head. Nor does Taco's channel make any indication of his satire. It doesn't say he's a premier presup satirist, it says he's the premier atheist presup. It'd be a bit like if, instead of having an incredible volume of crap making fun of all sides, The Onion or Babylon Bee only made fun of one very specific thing. It'd be a lot harder to tell that it's not a real conspiracy shitposter. So if Tacos isn't going to make it clear that he isn't serious, then I'm not going to apologize to the Poe for misunderstanding him.
And that is to expose how weak and pathetic presuppositionalism is by demonstrating to Christians how annoying, frustrating, arrogant, ignorant, and broken precept is. Throw it back in their face.
And I'm fine with that goal. I've since come to understand that Taco's got to start by going up against people like Darth Dawkins, and yeah, throw his precept right back at him so he can hopefully experience how wrong the technique is, even if he's too stupid to logically understand why it doesn't work. But then Joseph wasn't such a precept. Tacos didn't throw his precept back at him, he just threw his precept at him. Fight fire with fire, sure, but don't just go around lighting things on fire. And to whatever degree Tacos is just doing this to troll people, I don't respect that reason. I'm here to have a serious conversation, and if Taco isn't, then I'm not going to put any weight on what he says.
Why are you an atheist?
Because I think that there is scant evidence for the existence of God, and I think that the evidence against the existence of God is enough to establish the likelihood of the claim God does not exist being true.
This is by far the smartest response you'll hear in this video about what atheism is. The first half, that there is scant evidence for God, is a pretty good.
All right, this is the smartest response that you'll hear. Good poisoning of the well there, buddy.
That's not poisoning the well. I'm certainly not poisoning the well against Leo, because I'm saying that he made a good point. And while the implication is that the rest of the video is bad, it'd only be poisoning the well if I'm saying that their character is suspect, and therefore their argument should be dismissed. I'm not doing that. I'm just implying that the rest of the video will contain bad arguments. It's just my opinion, and if anything, it's a thesis statement, one which I'm going to spend the rest of the video explaining. But evidence is a different beast, and God's unfalsifiable nature makes it very difficult to find something conclusively against him.
Can you?
That depends on which version of God you're speaking about, because some gods are falsifiable, at least within, depending on a lot of variables. But that they're unfalsifiable pretty much falsifies them.
Yeah, dependent on certain variables. But while particular gods can be ruled out, sometimes your understanding of a god may be different than another person's understanding of even the same god. And so I'd want to ask a person what they understand God to be before I say whether it's falsifiable. And as frustrating as it is, something being unfalsifiable does not mean that it's false. It's perfectly reasonable to withhold judgment on things which are unfalsifiable, but to actually say that God doesn't exist because God is unfalsifiable, I think is almost as bad a mistake as presup. You're just choosing whatever answer you want in lieu of any evidence.
Can you give me some evidence against the existence of God?
So I'm a
Switching burden of proof.
No, Leo just said that.
and I think that the evidence against the existence of God is enough to establish the likelihood of the claim God does not exist being true.
So Joseph is entirely in the right to ask what that evidence is. Leo took the Gnostic stance, and the cost is that people will ask you to bear the burden of proof. I don't take the stance that spiritual or supernatural things definitely don't exist. It's just that I have lots of evidence for natural things, so I believe they exist, and I'm still waiting on that evidence for the supernatural.
Yeah, it's funny. This was kind of my position for a long time, that I was being rather careful with saying that they don't exist, until I got a hold of this idea from Answers in Atheism. I'm a localized naturalist materialist. There's zero evidence of any non-natural, non-material things that I personally know about. None. Not even a little. So you can maybe add that to your repertoire and say that you're a localized materialist naturalist, and then that way you can say, yeah, I don't have any evidence of any of this spiritual stuff.
I do feel that to some extent, DM and I got off on the wrong foot. So I want to take this moment to emphasize that this is one of our points of agreement. I'm certainly a materialist and a naturalist, and I'm happy to add the word local if that's just meant to specify that I'm working with my local knowledge, restricted to the evidence I have access to. What does the accuracy of science have anything to do with the non-existence of God? I can account for the accuracy of science whether a God exists or not.
By saying it's extremely successful to many.
Well, I don't need to defend Leo, far be it from me to do so. The more charitable view would be that science is a methodology we know that works, and theism doesn't.
I can hear theists saying almost exactly the same thing, that we know science to be a working methodology, and we don't know atheism to work, so let's throw it out. DM, the point I think you're missing is that science can be accurate if God exists, and it can be accurate if God doesn't exist. The fact that science is accurate is irrelevant to whether there's a God. I know many theists think that the order and logic of math and science are contingent on God's design, and both of you are equally wrong to say that their accuracy is at all indicative of a God's existence. If you want to say that this is Occam's razor and you can make science work without a God, so you won't assume one exists, that's fine. But that isn't the Gnostic stance Leo took. I also don't like that by saying that theism is incompatible with science, the implication is that theists can't understand science, at least not properly or fully. And I'm sorry, but that just doesn't match with many of the believers I know.
Right, but you were presenting it as a counter argument against theism, and I'm saying it's
It is, because science doesn't show us that anything supernatural exists.
This is the classic black swan fallacy. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So
No, that's not what the black swan. You just mixed up two fallacies. Okay, black swan's fallacy is, you've never seen a black swan.
Science doesn't show us that anything supernatural exists.
So therefore, there are none.
Sounds like a black swan fallacy to me.
It's an extrapolation based on observation, but science has never discovered the supernatural. That is a true statement. It is not a black swan fallacy.
It may be true to say that science has never discovered anything supernatural, but it is a black swan fallacy to say that therefore nothing supernatural exists. While it's a good reason to fail to believe in the supernatural, it doesn't meet the burden of proof to show that the supernatural does not exist.
Well, it kind of does, though, because the supernatural can't be proven. If you can't prove it, then it might as well not be.
Okay, so if we can't prove atheism, then we should just assume atheism to be false, right? Like, the fact that DM can't recognize this black swan fallacy is ironically taking him incredibly close to being a precept. Science can't access the answers to the questions I want answered, so insert whatever conclusion I want. For example, science is limited to the natural and can't discover the supernatural, therefore the supernatural doesn't exist. Or science cannot prove atheism, therefore atheism is false. It's all the same inconsistent, self-serving, ignorant bullshit. And there are plenty of theodicies answering it. Some aren't great. Some say that God has revealed himself to everyone and that the answer is obvious to all, but that's patently untrue. But other theodicies work, like referencing free will and human fallibility, changing.
How does that theodicy work? By work, you mean it's sound? Those aren't sound arguments. They include several presuppositions in them.
I didn't actually make any argument at all there, so DM couldn't possibly know whether the ones I would have made would have included presuppositions. Divine hiddenness only rules out a particular kind of God, one which wants to and is capable of being universally known. It does not rule out a God who wants to be, say, known by those who have true hearts who search for him, or who wants to be hands-off and let people exercise their free will. Depending on the belief system, there are a whole slew of plausible explanations why a higher being might behave strangely to us. It is on the argument of divine hiddenness to carry the burden of proof in ruling those possibilities out. You don't just get to say it's precept on my part just because I'm considering the hypothetical solutions. Were I a theist, the problem of hiddenness would not shake my faith. Rather, it would merely inform me about the type of God which existed.
In an undeniable way, right? So that's my question to you.
I had to pause, throw up, and then re-listen to that sentence before I could respond to it.
Oh, get off your high horse. Come on. Stop poisoning the well. All right? I had to pause and throw up. Come on. Really?
I'm sorry, I thought the whole point of the precept script was to be frustrating. Forgive me for my frustrated reaction. If these are the insults that DM referred to in our conversation, then I point out that they were directed not at Taco, but at the precept script he just read. So if he isn't serious about it, then neither is my disgust.
Breakfast tacos is just doing what they do unto them as you'd have them do unto you. Well, that's exactly what Breakfast Tacos is doing. He's doing unto them what they do to us.
Wait, so you want theists to precept us? Tacos should do unto the theists as you want the theists to do unto you, so that's why tacos is a precept. Or do you want to admit that you caught yourself from spilling the actual logic of what you were saying, which is that you do unto them as they do unto us? They precept us, and so we're going to precept them back, yeah? It's less golden rule and more revenge. Of course, Tacos can't even do that right. Now that I understand his actual position as a Poe, my critique has shifted away from taking his precepts seriously and towards the fact that he encourages people to take his precepts seriously. I'm not even sure what he means by special revelation. Usually I hear theists talking about that as a message from God, but Taco doesn't believe in God. So
because it's a parody! Hello? Taking a parody seriously. Alright.
I cut these bits out, but DM does spend some time in his response telling me that I should be a more charitable listener. There's some hypocrisy here when he can't seem to understand why Joseph and I are taking this parody seriously. And in one of the sections I cut, one of DM's friends who goes by the name Blaster Master joins the stream, and we'll pick up with DM bringing him up to speed. Just for the record, I like Blaster, which is unfortunately going to result in most of his parts getting cut out.
Without recapping the entire video, can you maybe tell me what his main complaint was?
Well, precept sucks, which I agree,
Yeah, it's stupid.
But it's dishonest. Anyone doing it is dishonest. Well, that's poisoning of the well, but whatever.
Yeah.
His reason is that if he didn't complain about Breakfast Tacos precept, that somebody would accuse him of ad hominem or something like that because he hates precepts so much.
I did say ad hom, but that was as an example. The underlying problem I pointed out was that they would accuse me of not having a real reason to deny their precept. Even if I give the logical reason why it doesn't work, they could just dismiss it and say that I'm rejecting precept because I disagree with the conclusion. My intention in making my video was to have something I could point to where I can say, hey, here's a precept whose conclusion I agree with, and yet I still disagree with the method. It's not the conclusion, it's the method. I'm just trying to get ahead of that response. Now, even though DM got my point wrong here, I'm not going to accuse him of strawmanning me because I think I didn't do a great job of explaining this in the video. So, sorry that this wasn't clear. Charitably, Taco is trying to make a rhetorical point here about how vague and useless the look at the trees argument is, but he never makes that clear. As far
so
as
he
I can
does get
tell,
it.
he's
Yeah. Wait, what? You sure you do understand what's... Wait, what? What?
Yeah, what the fuck?
What? Wait, no! No, this whole video he was treating it like it was serious. Now he gets
What a
it.
lot.
Wait, what the point? What?
I don't know, man.
I don't understand what I'm listening
Now I'm
to.
confused.
I'm so confused.
Alright, so let me clarify what just happened. I've understood the whole time what an argument from absurdity is and how to use it. You do it in response to somebody who makes a stupid argument. That's why I did this. It's like he's completely unaware that calling something undeniable doesn't make it undeniable. But if it does, then he's wrong and that's an undeniable fact. And I know DM understands this because after I said, it was one of the most brain-dead things I've ever heard someone say, DM responds with a whole bit saying things like,
You, sir, are stupid. Normally I invite people to come and talk to me, but not you. You're dead to me.
and then making the absurdity clear by culminating in,
Golly. Oh, man. Oh, I'm just so sick of it. I just hate it so much. Oh, right. Everything I did there is called hyperbolic, straw man.
that's the right way to do it. Because by doing it in response to me and then making it clear that you're not really serious, your actual point is clear. When Taco does it in the original video, he didn't do it in response to anyone. He's talking with Joseph. Joseph asks him if he's really a precept, and Taco makes every indication that he is. For all we know, Joseph is already on board that precept is stupid. In fact, when Taco does his whole look at the trees bit and Joseph responds in kind, I'm pretty sure that he's trying to make the argument from absurdity to Taco's, who he has every reason to think is being serious. So this brings me to what has become my main criticism. Now that I understand Taco's position, I think it's fine to do what he's doing in explicit response to a precept. If you're in a conversation with somebody who's espousing precept, then taking the opposite stance with the same justification is a wonderful way to demonstrate the absurdity of the reasoning. Taco's doesn't do that. He didn't wait for Joseph to make explicit presuppositions and then try to point out why that's bad. No, he just launches right into it. And I watched 2 of his other videos. He does the same kind of thing without bothering to make his actual point clear to the people that he's probably already in agreement with. Even in his channel description, he calls himself the premier atheist presuppositional apologist. So yeah, I fell for his sarcasm hook, line, and sinker, but that's because Taco made no attempt to throw me a lifeline. There is a certain sense of irony that my primary rebuttal against Taco's argument was the same kind of argument from absurdity that he was trying to use, and that DM and Joseph both used correctly. I do regret not spending more time on it, since it was just the one line I said about the undeniable facts. Nonetheless, it was exactly as valid an argument as it was for everyone else, which means that none of my insults were ad hom. They were just calling precept what it is. Now there is one salient point DM made, which is that I never actually explained the logic behind why presupposition is so bad. And he's right. I made a lot of assertions that it's bad, and I make the argument from absurdity, but I don't give the logic. That was one of the few things I was able to cover in our live discussion, when I said this.
So you got the logical law of non-contradiction, right? A thing cannot be both A and not A at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is presupposition going to be any better of a method for reaching A or for reaching not A? I see it's going to be equivalent. So if you have a method that can equally well get to 2 contradictory conclusions, then it's not a good method.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's the logical argument, because presupposition can get you to 2 logically contradictory conclusions. Therefore, presupposition
that would have been a good video.
And I'll add to this that there is always the is ought problem. If we wish to reach the statement that we ought to avoid presupposition, the hidden value we must accept is that we want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. That means using methods which reliably get to truth. Precept cannot be relied on to reach truth, since it is equally capable of reaching mutually contradictory conclusions. But if you don't care about whether your beliefs are true, then I guess it's okay for you to presuppose whatever you want. So DM, I will thank you for pushing me that little further to actually put this reason into words. I didn't do it in my first video because even though I script these, the absurdity of pre-sup is so obvious to me that I struggle to do more than assert how bad it is. So from now on, anytime I'm dealing with a pre-sup, I'm going to make this point clear, and put more emphasis on the absurdity argument if they still don't get it. So I'm glad I made these videos before dealing with real theist pre-sups, not for the reason I mentioned earlier, but because it turned into a good practice run that I learned something from. Maybe if I'd read more books, I wouldn't have messed up in the first place, so if you want to avoid the same mistake, go read a fucking book.